Hey everybody, this is Jeremy from FLST. Today I'm going to walk you through 3 different ways that you can record audio in FL Studio. The first way that we're going to talk about is recording directly from the mixer window. The second way is to record through Edison. And the third way is to record a track directly into the playlist. But before we jump into FL Studio, let me show you the components that I'm using so that we can record the audio. Today, what I'm using for a microphone is the Shure SM57. And I have that connected with an XLR cable. And I'm going down over here into a mic preamp. This is the Focusrite ISA1. So the microphone is getting input into here, it's getting amplified, and then it's coming back out through this mic cable and going into the PreSonus Audio Box i2. So you don't have to have this preamp in order to do this, but you do need to have the microphone cable, the SM57, and some sort of audio interface to get it into your computer and get it into the program. So let's jump inside of FL Studio and I'll show you what I'm doing. I loaded up a project that I was working on this last week, and so it basically just has a simple drum pattern, like a bass line, an electric guitar, some Rhodes, some shaker. But then it just has a ton of different vocal clips, and I wanted to show you how I work through recording each of these vocal clips. So what I'm going to do is play you a quick sample of what I was working on, and then I'll show you how I set that up in the mixer to be able to record the vocals really quickly. So here's a little sample of something that I was working on. Okay, so you can see that's the basic gist of it, is just a bunch of different vocals being recorded in. So I'm going to take you into the mixer, so go ahead and click F9. So this is how I would do this if I was trying to record this on the fly, like working on this project and trying to do all these different vocal takes. What I do is I come into the mixer, find a blank track. So I'm going to pick track 24 for this one. I have the USB interface plugged in, and my microphone is put into input number 1. And so that is this particular mic right in here. Check, 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 check 1, 2, check, check, check. So now I've got that coming in. And usually what I'll do is I'll actually adjust the vocals until they are hitting around that 12 to 18 on the peak. So if you look over here in this meter, you'll see the 12 and the 18, and I looked for the peaks just to kind of be hitting around in that area. And that'll just give me a pretty usable signal because it's above the noise floor. And if you're not familiar with noise floor, if you look at the signal when I put the microphone down, it's just kind of hovering down in this section, like in this, below this -40 area right in here. So we want to get a signal that's high enough above that it's usable, but it's not so high that it's almost peaking up at this 0 point, because if you get to that point you don't have a lot of room to work with to make the vocal better or anything else. So one of the things that I also do is I'll name this track and I'll call it vocals or vox or something along those lines. Sometimes I'll color it, sometimes I won't. We'll just leave it as default for right now. So one of the first things that I try to do in projects as well is to set up the data folder for the project. So if you click on F10, you'll bring up this window, and then you can go over to this tab called project. And if you go down here to data folder, what you can do is say, for this project, I want to tell the program where to store the audio file. So I had already created underneath of my songs folder one that's called Fights for Me. And so I'm saying, please store all the audio files that I record into this particular folder. So I click OK, and it asks me if I want to save the current project in this folder. And what that does is put the FL Studio project file into that same folder with the audio files. And that'll help later on if you want to open the project back up down the road and redo some edits on it or remix it or do whatever you need to do. You'll have everything in one place. So I always say yes to that. So now that we've done that, this red button comes automatically armed once we've clicked on this channel. So we're going to right click on it it'll turn gray, and then we right click on it again. It's going to open up into that folder that we created, and you can see all the different files that I have in here. But typically what I'll do is I'll come in and I'll say I'm getting ready to create some vox for chorus or verse, let's say 3. So I know that I'm getting ready to come in and I'm layering these tracks, and I'm going to come into this verse 3 one, and I'm going to lay down some vocals for that. So now that I've gotten that set up, it's ready to record. And typically what I'll do is I'll give myself a little bit of lead time. So I'll come back in maybe a bar ahead of it, so that I'll have about 4 seconds or 4 clicks before it'll start recording. So that way I won't have to immediately start as soon as that happens. And I also put on this button, which is another countdown before recording. So this just gives me a little bit extra time to pace myself before I start recording the vocal. So if I hit record now, what you'll hear is it'll click in 3 times, it'll start playing for these 4 clicks here, and then it'll actually I'll start the recording piece at that point. So this would be something like this. Now this is the test, so you can see that I'm recording a vocal. And you see that show up right here at the top. It's called the Vox 3. So if you click on Y, if you're in the playlist window and you click on Y, that'll let you preview what you just made. And now this is the test. So you can see that I'm recording a vocal. So it laid it in right there at the top of verse 3, right when I started recording, but I also have a little bit of a tail up front, and I like to do that just so I don't cut anything off directly as I'm coming into the verse. And that's just a personal preference. You don't have to do it that way, but I find that helps for me when I'm doing some editing, things like that. So that's just a really quick way that you can do it. There's plenty of other ways. One of the other ways that you can do this is if you set up Edison on the track that you're going to be working on, and it is right here. So now I have this vocal channel set up and I have Edison set up, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll do the same kind of thing. I'll highlight, so you right click and maybe highlight the section that you want to be recording. Again, I give myself a bar up front here. But then if you tab back to Edison, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to select on play. And what that's going to do is as soon as this starts playing from here, I don't have to hit record, I just have to hit play. And if this is armed to record, it will start recording the audio as soon as this starts playing. And because I have this selection right here, what it's going to do is keep looping back. And as it loops back, it'll make some markers in this file. So I'll show you an example of this, and I'll talk to you about why that might be beneficial as well. So let's go ahead and arm it for recording, and then let's hit play. So this is test 1 with the vocal. So this is test 1 with the vocal, just so you can see that I'm getting something in there for Edison for this first round. It's getting ready to loop again. And here's test 2 coming in with the vocal, and you can see that it's gonna loop back around yet again. Here in just a second. Alright, so now that I stopped that, if I come back down into Edison, I stop that. So the nice thing with this is I can come in here to Edison and I could preview each one of these takes. So this is test 1 with the vocal, just so you can see that I could come in and I could say, okay, let's test this one. And here's test 2 coming in with the vocal. Alright, so I like this one better, let's say, and then I can just drag and drop right between these markers and it automatically sets it in the right location, which is nice. It's convenient that it puts it right where you want it to be or right where you need it to be. So that's another convenient way that you can create a bunch of takes very rapidly and then just use the take that you really like in that one section. So that's just another method that you can use. There's also another method, which is to actually set up a track as a recording thing. It's a recording thing. You can set up a track to be assigned to a specific insert from the mixer. So in this case, I can say, please do Vox 1, and I can arm it for recording here. And then if I go back into the mixer track, again, I'd have to give it a name. Say Vox test, call it 4 for this test right now. And it's armed for recording, so when I hit record, it's going to record directly from this track right here.
Track, and you can see that the audio is being recorded right now.
And so you see it show up over here. Let's play it really quickly.
So this locks the audio to that specific track.
The one thing that I think is a disadvantage on this is if you were to come back in and wanted to do a second take, if you didn't mute this out, it'll play the first track and record the next track, which can be a little bit distracting. So if we were to come in here,
this locks the audio to that specific track. You can see that the audio is being recorded right now.
so you can see it overlays both of those vocals on top of each other. It has everything underneath of that one mixer track. It's all grouped together, but it doesn't automatically mute that first take. And so that can be a little bit disconcerting when you're trying to record something and there's something else that shows up when you're trying to do your new performance. So those are 3 different methods that you can use to record audio in FL Studio. So let's recap them really quickly. If we bring up our mixer track, we can set up this mixer track individually, and we can arm that for recording, name the file what we want it to, and we can directly record onto the playlist wherever we want to. We can also create an Edison track in this vocal track, and we can set it to do it on play, create the selection that we want, and then hit play here, but make sure this is recording here, and we can record multiple takes of this particular section. And the third way that we talked about is you can actually set up a track in your playlist to record the vocals specifically. They have advantages and disadvantages for each one of those. I just wanted to take you through a couple different methods that you can do it. Find the one that works best for you, find the way that you feel most comfortable with, and just roll with that. Well, hopefully it's helpful for you guys to learn a couple different ways that you can record audio in FL Studio. If you have any questions or comments about the methods that I showed you today, just leave them in the comments below. And if you have any other methods that you prefer to use in FL Studio to record audio, just leave those in the comments below as well. I hope you found this valuable, and I will see you in the next round.